I'm very, very happy to be able to introduce John BRANDT, who is the Director of Professional Practices and Innovation at InCyber. And he's going today to talk to us about generative AI and new research on generative AI and research on digital trust. It's all yours.
Proceed. Good morning. So as I said, I'm with ISACA, Director of Professional Practice and Innovation. In my role, I direct and influence professional development for ISACA constituents, which spans IT audit and assurance, risk, cybersecurity, privacy, governance, primarily. This is truly an honor, and I want to formally thank my peer up here, the ISACA Montreal chapter. This conference here gives us an opportunity to give you a first look into the AI Pulse poll data that we ran a couple weeks ago. Generative AI has captured the headlines throughout 2023. It's not going anywhere. So it is really timely research. I'm excited to provide some of the findings of that and the tie into our annual State of Cybersecurity report. This is our agenda. We're going to talk about generative AI, state of cyber, then collectively just a broad brush of how ISACA helps the global digital ecosystem. So ISACA surveyed more than 2,300 professionals across all of our practice areas who work in audit, risk, security, data privacy, and IT governance. To see all of the results of this, you can go to the URL here on the ISACA landing page. Like I said, that research was formally released late yesterday to coincide with FIC North America. Generative AI is here. It's not going anywhere. It's going to continue to evolve as a technology and accelerate as businesses continue to adopt it. PwC projects that generative AI is going to contribute more than $15 trillion to the economy by 2030. That's a large number. To understand the impact of generative AI amongst our current practitioners and the survey respondents, we ran this Pulse poll. Big tech. So the use of generative AI is ramping up. Organizations are not yet prepared. That's, at the end of the day, if you walk away with nothing else, companies are not prepared as it is today. AI can bring tremendous opportunities, but only if it's effectively managed. Food for thought, the fact that big technology is advocating for guardrails for a technology that they brought to market should be alarming to all of us. Any of the system cards that are out there really highlight tremendous amounts of risk to it that cannot be overlooked. So how is it being used today? You see up here on the screen, albeit it's a little light here. Largely speaking, generative AI is being used to create content. And first and foremost, that's a huge issue. Regardless of where you are right now, there are tons of lawsuits that have spawned from this. Those that have created these large language models and how they actually collected data to learn them may or may not have done so with sufficient permission. Time will tell with that. Anecdotal evidence and the reports that I read signify that the technology giants who have brought this and continue to are advocating that it's going to be for the greater good. However, at the end of the day, what's core to this is that data is modern currency, and the data that these algorithms were learning off of may not have been permitted to be used. And every enterprise that's out there needs to acknowledge that and really have a policy and be advocating within the companies to really communicate the risks of all of this. In the United States, in particular, fair use doctrine is going to come under tremendous scrutiny with this. ISACA's research found that only 28% of organizations say that they expressly permit use of generative AI. And yet more than 40% of organizations say that they have employees that are using it regardless of whether or not there's a policy or not. Generative AI largely just represents an evolution of shadow IT. That is truly a lot more pervasive, with a lot of it being cloud-based and data leaving your organization. ISACA largely believes that balanced regulation and conscious corporate governance can unlock the positive potential of AI and reduce risk. It truly is it's going to take a concerted effort by all, really, and poses an interesting problem, if you will, between security and privacy, because these two areas are really coming into alignment when it comes to AI. Both the private and public sector are keen to adopt AI-based solutions, but at the same time, they're struggling to recruit professionals who have the requisite knowledge, skills, and abilities within that. This is it's amplifying an existing problem within the cyber workforce right now, with a mismatch or a lack of supply to the overwhelming demand that's been reported by some. Companies should be supported and encouraged to regard skills as foundational for safe adoption. Safe and beneficial implementation can be achieved if organizations reach a certain level of security maturity. They need to properly train their staff, communicate business impacts or organizational and corporate national impacts to your respective countries. Regulations need to strike a good balance between establishing measures, manufacturers, and market actors to leave sufficient room to maneuver to promote investments in technology. AI provides a lot. It's being touted as going to help a lot of things, and no doubt the opportunities are surely going to be out there for us. There are some that believe it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. I am not one of those individuals. I do think that it's fundamentally going to alter work. However, if you look at the global economy and the impacts to work across the globe, there's a lot of factors, and it really poses a huge global issue by which world leaders are going to have to look at this. Meanwhile, we have a lot of bad actors who have already making use of it, and they're making all of your jobs in this room a lot more difficult. The lack of training and low attention to ethical implementation can lead to increased risks such as biased outcomes and ethically challenging applications. Make no mistake, every algorithm that's out there today has some level of bias. I would argue that it's never going to totally be eliminated. The reason being is because in any group or niche that we end up in, you end up with some kind of groupthink. There's tendencies between geography. There's tendencies within nationalities within a country. There's tendencies within occupations. That bias is alive and well. I believe it was there was a case out in Europe regarding, I'm trying to think, memory serves me right. I think it was a Dutch thing regarding benefits for people regarding housing. And that was a really good case study that we need to look at of how technology without human oversight and verification can cause very adverse effects. We're seeing that across the globe right now in every which way. The capacity of technology is doubling right now. If you look at what's happened since roughly March with GPT-4 alone, it's just a purely the best example of how pervasive technology can really gain roots and take off. However, as we come into the fall here, roughly 6 months later, a little bit more, we're starting to see some of that flash and excitement kind of wane. I think people are really, they're understanding what it is and what it's not today, what it can and cannot do today, and and truly the risk that it is. All right, cyber criminals are increasingly using it. You know, even in the time since this presentation was finalized just days ago, there are stories coming out, and this is really a story that continues to evolve by the day. And I think that as practitioners and those of us who influence any profession in this whole digital ecosystem, we have a responsibility to kind of put the pause button on a lot of this. Let's take a deep breath, but also be very methodical. Things are moving fast. We need to help slow down the decision making and not chase those shiny objects, by which much of the industry has been doing for a long time. Respondents were asked what the top 5 risks were. At the top here, respondents they indicated misinformation / disinformation. I was actually a little surprised by that, truthfully. We know that AI has been used for some length of time, and we could look at the last couple of years with the advancements in deepfake technology and some of that stuff that's happening right now. Obviously, there's some overlap between some of the response options here, but I would argue that social engineering, in even just the past week alone, is seeing tremendous impact. The way that we train corporate users, the existing landscape continues to get, it's getting a lot more creative. We rely a lot on security education and awareness training. At the end of the day, though, a lot of those were based on markers that were very obvious. Those obvious markers are going away. And we're seeing that in a lot of ways right now. I'd say that privacy violations are obviously very, very large, and especially in areas that have stronger privacy regulation. But this is something I do think we're going to see some change here when we run this survey yet again. One in 5 organizations are opening roles related to AI-related functions in the next 12 months. You know, that's pretty interesting because we can't even fill the existing jobs that allegedly exist out there. And I continue to have conversations with colleagues and and peers out in the market, as well as a lot of individuals who wanted to come into cybersecurity and are unable to get a job. And we have a lot of work to do, and there's not a lot of true AI-based programs out there. I think all this is going to do is grow a demand that's not going to be filled anytime soon. Undoubtedly, you're probably going to have a lot of vendors that are going to step in and offer solutions. And my guidance to any decision maker is to be slow and methodical, because once you end up with some kind of financial commitment, the willingness of executives to want to walk away from that is pretty low. So you want to be able to get it right. Almost 80% believe that misinformation and disinformation are a risk, right? We talked about that on that prior slide. 45% believe a significant number of jobs are going to be eliminated. I think that's just a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The FUD, right? If you guys have heard that description. Goldman Sachs does suggest equivalent of 300 million full-time jobs could be replaced. Again, I think that's highly opportunistic, and I think that doesn't consider all of the potential variables to this. The same research reports that it could create jobs. And that's largely where I feel that we're at within the technology space. I feel that there's largely a shell game that continues to happen. And what we need to be doing better is to allow people who are in segments of IT or related professions want to move in and move out and evolve with that. There's a ton of passionate people that are out there today. We have a responsibility to help them and to grow your own. One of the things that I see repeatedly right now is organizations are expecting job seekers to show up on day one and be able to do everything. That cannot happen. And no other occupation is that expected. We need to stop expecting that as well. There's a responsibility within company to actually train them. 23% do think jobs can increase. AI and the use of generative AI or generative forms are likely to have an impact on the labor market, which we've already touched on a little bit. The positive impact of AI will depend very much on whether public and private organizations are well equipped and organized to safely and effectively use this. And I think this is the crux of the issue right now. Especially the small to medium enterprises don't have the big budgets. They can't afford large staffs. So they're looking for solutions outside of their company to not only remain relevant, but also comply with an evolving number of regulatory levers that keep coming down on them. The regulatory market, really, I think, is the one that of greatest influence on companies today. Key takeaways on this segment of research is the rapid adoption is outpacing any organizational policies and training. Again, if you're an organization and you do not have a formal policy or have issued guidance, you are far behind. Surely your people are already using any number of tools that are out there to do segments of their job, and our goal is to actually help them understand the impacts that they're causing within their company and potentially the industry. And at the end of the day, that's the thing, is communicating technical risk to non-technical audiences at the end of the day. Ethical concerns and lack of AI training represent significant risks, highlighting the urgency to address all of this for establishing digital trust. Digital trustworthiness is not going to be easy, and it's a lot larger than just IT. If we look back at where things have changed and how they've evolved in the last 10, 20 years, all of technology is a business enabler. Security struggled with this for the longest amount of time. If you're a security practitioner, you understand that. You can't take security and expect it just to bolt it onto business process and expect it to work. It needs to be considered at its earliest venture, and as ISACA carries out in its pursuit of digital trust, that's a lot broader than security. Security is just one aspect of digital trustworthiness. There's a lot of other components to it, and it involves us as practitioners across anything IT related to be closer to the business leader. That's where we win. So the other segment of research that we released earlier this month is our annual State of Cybersecurity report. This is a personal project of mine that I've had the pleasure of leading for about 5 years now. This is where I could talk for hours on this. The goal every year is to continue to drill down further and to provide actionable information to the community. On the surface, a lot hasn't changed within the market, which when you look at the data at a macro level year after year, it can be a little concerning. right? Because we see all the big headlines, we see the breaches, we see the fines that are coming down, we see that every year there are some associations and organizations out there that are talking about this very large number of jobs to get into the industry. Here's the problem though. We've been creating, these programs have been creating outputs for many years now. We have not been training for just a couple years. Cybersecurity training, reskilling programs, and university programs have been around for a long time. Why have we not begun to make a difference? Why are we not making that number a little lower? The issue is not necessarily, I assert that problem in particular is a lack of the right data, which is why ISACA continues to report what it is and to help at least provide some insights. It may not be 100% to each and every one of you. It represents a global snapshot, and there is some geographic variability within that. Make no mistake. But what I'm going to cover here is just a very small surface. I encourage every one of you to go download the report and look at the year after year trending data. In some cases, it's pretty bleak. Nearly 48% say their organization is experiencing more cyber attacks compared to a year ago. That isn't really too concerning. But a lot of this, even though that's a large number, if you look at it from the year before, it is actually it's actually decreased a little bit, which was a little interesting, and I believe it has to do with timing. ISACA changed the timing of when we released this report. We used to do it in conjunction with the RSA conference in California. But because of the pandemic and that change and us adding a couple new surveys, we have changed it to coincide with Cybersecurity Awareness Month here in the United States, okay? And in the time that when we sent the survey out, things were kind of quiet. Shortly after that, the MoveIt breach came, and we're starting to see a lot of fallout. So I do think that that's going to potentially influence next year's data. And like anything else, the laws of primacy and recency are affected. Things that are near and dear to us will influence how respondents ever respond to a survey. "59% of cybersecurity leaders say their teams are understaffed." Again, that speaks to the issue of there's a lot of folks on the sidelines. You know, I go out on LinkedIn, I talk to a lot of graduates, and there's a lot of frustration of why individuals can't get into cybersecurity. There's a lot. It's a complicated issue on one sense. In others, it's not. I believe, and I will be personally writing an article in conjunction with my comms team later this month, taking a little bit different spin on this and putting some onus on the companies. I think that there's far too many bad job descriptions that are out there, and we're asking to do too much with too little. Obviously, cybersecurity professionals and IT professionals in general typically command greater wages than some of the other work that's out there. That may be what's influencing some of this. But we have to start somewhere. And right now what we're doing is discouraging a lot of folks that were trying to change careers or early people early in their career that we may lose from ever wanting to progress with us. 42% had a high degree of confidence in their cybersecurity team's ability to detect and respond. I think this optimism is based on timing, and I think that the optimism is ill-advised. But like anything else, the survey data, regardless of who provides it, is only good as the inputs. So whereas we target our research to people with security roles and to people that are CISM certified or who had this ISACA CSXP certification in the past, there are a lot of individuals out there who are carrying multiple roles. not just one of security related. And that's also, I think, is part of the challenge right now, is this, we're asking too many people to do too many things. And all it's doing is creating a lot of burnout, which is well reported out there. Talent's still in demand. 50% say that they have job openings for entry level compared to 21%. I will tell you that I was really floored and surprised that allegedly 50% of respondents indicated they had jobs for entry level. I think that that's something that each and every organization out there has to go back and take a hard look at too. Entry level does not mean any length of experience. Entry level typically means no experience. You might have a degree, but you don't have to have it, and you may or may not have a certification. We have done a disservice with mandating a lot of credentials and requirements for somebody coming into the workforce. We have to do better. There are way too many skills frameworks out there to help influence that, to identify the bare minimum of what you need for competencies walking in the door. And I will tell you all that every year that we ask what the growing need is, soft skills trumps everything. That is the overwhelming thing. It's not technical skills. Regarding this, 95% say that the candidate has, when asked, how do you determine if a candidate is qualified for a position, is experience. Experience doesn't have to be paid experience. That's where I think we need to do a much better job early on with helping people through internships and highlighting their opportunities out in the community and these various different cyber challenges that happen. Certification is one pathway to success. We remain, as an IT profession, the most credentialed that are out there, and we lean the most on certifications. But my experience in the research that we've run over the years, as well as myself as a practitioner, there remains about a 51 to 49% split as to people who love or hate certifications, and it's based on your personal experience with them. The integrity of their program, making sure it's accredited to ISO standards for fairness and impartiality, have a code of ethics, all that goes a long way to continuing the trust that's out there. And your interactions with certified professionals matters. ISACA recently released another asset here. Again, ISACA.org. /AI tech policy tech considerations for what you should consider when establishing some kind of policy. In our work to provide some tools to our members, there's no one size fits all. Again, we're given some general guidance of what individuals, what companies you should be considering to incorporate into either new or existing policies. ISACA is not just a credentialing body. ISACA is a family. It's a global community of a ton of passionate individuals. 170,000 members, 225 chapters. ISACA as an organization thrives because of the passion and selflessness of all those individuals. I work on the global staff here back in the United States. My job is really an advocate on behalf of all the chapters to work as partners as best we can. The work that is shown here up on this screen is a credit to a lot of that passion and energy that releases out there. We did recently release a white paper that I would suggest that everybody look at. It is, I will apologize in advance, it is currently only in US, it's in English only. I will personally be going back to explore opportunity to accelerate some translations. But this paper on AI risks titled The Promise and Peril of AI is a must read for every business leader out there right now, as well as all the practitioners. It's interesting to talk to folks through when you come to conferences like this and understand the impacts and the challenges that small to medium enterprises have. ISACA is one of many players in the market, but again, we're not just a credentialing body. We are a global community. We've got chapters that actually run both similar, their own thing, as well as in conjunction with ISACA Global. We run global conferences. We put out a lot of thought leadership for our members as well as others. As well as we have 3 annual reports that we're putting out every year now. Since you are at my session, I will tell you that the next State of Privacy survey is going to get released the end of January. So you heard it here first. These surveys in our continual approach to look at longitudinal data offer a lot of value, in my opinion. Certifications speak for themselves. If you're a certified practitioner, you know that you've recognized some of the acronyms here. If you're not familiar, please go over to booth 607, talk to my Montreal colleagues here, and learn more. Professional associations are global learning communities, and that's truly what we true to embody. So thank you so much for your time. It's an honor to be here.